During fall ball, towards the end of fall ball, we lift twice a week in the morning. And this is right after, I believe, Joe Wilkins, his wife Andrea, had their second baby. And Dom Guzzi and guys were asking how Joe was doing and if his wife had the baby. Dom Guzzi asked, and I said, yeah, she had it. And he asked, well, would they name it? And I just kind of off the cuff paused for a second, and I said, George LaCourt Wilkins. And he thought, wow, and I just walked away after I said it. So I said it, didn't give him much time, and there's been a lot of banter with him and some of those guys. We have a really funny sophomore class, and there's a lot of banter going back and forth with those guys on when he was telling everybody that Joe named his kid after me and John LaCourt. I hope he doesn't get too upset after he realizes the real baby's name.
To think that I would name my firstborn son George LaCourt Wilkins. Come on, Dom. Idiot. Dom had a full bite on this thing, and it really came to a head at a basketball game in the wintertime, early in the winter, when I look up and those guys are sitting up in the bleachers. It's Dom Guzzi, Severance, and P-Row are up there, and Dom hollers down and says something about, hey Joe, Sam doesn't believe that, can you believe Sam doesn't believe that your son's name is George LaCourt? And I said, why wouldn't he believe that?
When we found out Joe named his son George LaCourt, everyone thought it was a big joke, but then once we found out it was reality, it was still funny to all of us, but we realized how close all the coaches were, and when we knew how much Coach George and Coach LaCourt meant to Joe, it was huge, and knowing that our coaches were closely bonded together, we knew that they were all in it for one true meeting.
So he came in one day, and I was working on my thesis project, so I was measuring people for their range of motion, and Joe was helping me. And Joe kind of winked at me, and Dom didn't know it was coming, but Joe started telling a story about Audrey, who his daughter had made this noise, and Luke just thought it was hysterical. And, you know, Joe said, you know, Allie, like, little George LaCourt just thinks that it's so funny when Audrey does this thing.
So she's laughing, her head's turning red, she's dying laughing, and Dom, after about 20 seconds, just kind of has this look on his face and goes, man, I think it's so cool that you named your son that. And then just kind of went about his business like nothing happened. Like, of course I named my kid George LaCourt. Of course I did that.
Okay, so I was sitting down with the baseball coaches to do their season preview, and Joe is a new coach this year, so I had to do a coaching bio on him. And they asked me, they said, we need you to do a little favor, and they told me about what was going on. So when I wrote his bio, if you go to the bottom of his bio online, I wrote in there, Wilkins and his wife, Andrea, currently live in Lewis Center with their two young children, Audrey Kathleen and George LaCourt. And then we sent someone down and had them pull that up in front of Dom Guzzi, and we're reading it off and saying, oh, hey, look at Joe's picture, look how funny it looks. And then at the end of his bio, they kind of drew attention to the name in there. So that was my part in helping this thing keep going.
Yeah, after seeing the bio online for Joe, when it said his son's name was George LaCourt, I was one of the only guys that talked to Joe about it, so I had to convince everyone that didn't believe that his name was really George LaCourt. And everyone thought it was just one big joke, but it turns out it's his son's real name.
Dom, I don't know how you can be so dumb, but his name is definitely not George LaCourt.
So, I mean, it's really funny now that we're making fun of Dom in front of everybody right now, but I can't believe it's gone this far, because it's something like all of us right away knew they're messing with us, but now it's just like Dom still believes it, and you're just like, man, oh man.
George LaCourt Wilkins, are you kidding me, Dom? It doesn't even make sense. You still believe in the Easter Bunny, don't you? Make sure you put your teeth under the pillow for the tooth fairy tonight.
Well, I remember hearing it down in Florida, and I really didn't think of anything past it. I thought it was just a joke the entire time. I didn't realize that it lasted this long in Dom's mind. Jeez, come on, Dom, you're better than that, man.
The illusion that has been created over the last 4 months has been so strong and convincing that even myself and some others are starting to believe that Joe's son is actually named George. I find myself having a conversation with him, and I'll ask him about his kids, and I'll reference his son as George instead of Luke. We've carried it on for that long that I think it's just starting to become that convincing to all of us.
Come on, Dom, really?
I mean, come on, Dom. There's no way Joe would name his kid George. Maybe LaCourte, but definitely not George.
The name George LaCourte has become an icon to the Otterbein baseball team because of the one and the only Dom Guzzi. He has single-handedly tried to convince the entire team that Joe's son's name is George LaCourte. I don't know what to say, Dom. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and we've all made like a bunch of bets that are just ridiculous bets because Dom thinks that we're actually going to pay up on these bets, but really in reality we all know it's a joke and we're not going to pay up.
Let me introduce you to my family here. This is a picture of my daughter. This is Audrey Kathleen Wilkins. She's 2.5 now. This, contrary to popular belief, is not George LaCourte Wilkins. This is my boy, Luke Richard Wilkins. You are such an idiot, Dom.